We're going to get her PowerPoint presentation up in just a second, but I'd first like to introduce Ms. Margarita Alexandra Coppi Agostinelli. I'm sorry for the pronunciation. She is a research assistant at the Inter-American Development Bank, and she will be presenting cultural diplomacy and the concept of the other. Please welcome Ms. Margarita Alexandra Coppi Agostinelli.
Hi everybody, good afternoon. I'm so sorry because I know that everybody's really tired, so I'm trying to be quick, I hope it's going to be quick, so quick and sweet. Okay, first of all, thanks for your attention, I hope. And I'm going to talk about cultural diplomacy and the concept of the other. So, first of all, so today we just touch on so many different words and meanings, and so we talk about globalization and the importance of civilization and immigration. So I'm trying to define some important meaning for my discussion, my presentation, because my presentation is going to be based on cultural diplomacy, identity, and the concept of the other. So cultural diplomacy, according to the Institute of Cultural Diplomacy exchange of ideas, informations, values, traditions, and other aspects of culture with respect of fostering mutual understanding. So based on this assumption, culture is really important because it shapes collective and individual identity. So what is identity? According to Stuart Hall in 1976, he wrote an article, and this article was called Who Needs Identity? So in his opinion, identity can be defined through the recognition to the other, to the recognition to what it lacks, to what is not. So right now my question is, who is the other? Okay, so this is introduction. My dissertation, my paper is going to be based on the role of cultural diplomacy, the concept of the other, and identity and cultural diplomacy. So what is cultural diplomacy? Cultural diplomacy has been always defined dependent on politics, but also, actually also a tool in public diplomacy, a political instrument, because it's really important because, first of all, can reach a lot of people, a large amount of people, and it also reflects the society and how the society changes. It's not just propaganda. According to Ambassador of Brazil to Thailand, Teles Ribeiro, he said that cultural diplomacy is cultural relations put at the service of foreign policy. One aspect really important that we have to think about, that every country needs to define its own identity. And first of all, it has to define its own diversity, which leads to the concept of the other. So who is the other? Actually, this is a really controversial issue because lots of anthropologists, lots of sociologists talk about the other. And so there are so many different concepts, so many different meanings of what the other can be. Actually, the other can be something and someone who is different from you. At the same time, here in the room can be everybody, or just can be one person, or can be just one outsider within the society, or can be yourself. So I'm just focusing on 4 anthropologists who studies this concept. So one of the first anthropologists I studied was Bronislaw Manilowski. In 1922, he wrote a book called The Argonauts of the Western Pacific. He went to the tribal island because he wanted to discover who was the other. He wanted to discover the tribal peoples. So he went there. He could speak the language, so he went there. And in his book, the first chapter were based on methodology, the study he did. But then he realized that the tribal peoples were different just based on cultural values, cultural connotation that were different. Another anthropologist was Jean Pitard. In 1926, he wrote a book called Race and History. And in this book, he said that the difference and the concept of the other was based on geographical dimensions. So even during this conference, we talk about the importance of migration. In fact, in his opinion, the people are different because based on environmental condition, geographical migrations, and invasions. Another person who analyzed the differences and this concept of the other was Margaret Mead in 1928. Margaret Mead went to the Samoan island and she wrote a book called The Coming of an Age in Samoa. She went there because she wanted to compare like the difference between the young adolescent Samoan girls and the young American girls. And she said the difference was basically on the fact of different kind of like education attainments. And then another person who wrote about the concept of the other, so he studied like these differences, was Tsvetan Todorov. In 1982, he wrote a book called The Conquest of America, which is really important because the subtitle of this book was the question of the other, so really related. So in his book, it's not just like a geographical or historical dissertation about the conquest of the other, so the conquest of the New World by the Spaniards, but it was really important because all the chapters were kind of representing the different phases of this discovery, this conquest, and so this sense of superiority, but at the same time, this sense of curiosity then, this sense of even like accepting the differences and accepting and trying to understand who was the other. So in short, the other has to be understood, and even this fact that of this diversity is really important for a country because then leads to the creation of nation building, of a nation state. So this is a really important fact of the other and this importance of the creation of cultural state for some countries more than others. An example can be the Brazilian example. Brazil has one of the most powerful emerging countries right now, and it is being expected to be the 5th major economic global power by 2016. And actually in terms of economics, it really has not been affected so much by the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009. So one of the problems of Brazil has, first of all, is really big. In fact, it's the 5th largest country in the world. But another problem is these racial differences, racial inequalities, and social inequalities. In fact, this is a problem because Brazil, in order to become really important in terms of economic and social development, it has, first of all, to solve this problem of inequality and social inequalities. So what is Brazil? This is another question because it's really difficult to understand what is Brazil since its large dimension and since different ethnic groups and ethnic classes. So the concept of Brasilidade, the concept of what is Brazil has not been defined yet. According to a sociologist, anthropologist called Gilberto Freire, he coined that term in 1927, saying that Brazil was characterized by a racial democracy. Racial democracy, in his opinion, was basically the fact that this country was characterized by different races living together. So, in his opinion, these races lived in a kind of peaceful way, but this was not really the reality because, as we know, there are so many like economic and social differences, and there are like some social groups and some ethnic groups like Afro-Brazilian people and indigenous groups who are still like suffering from exclusion, from discrimination, and they don't have any kind of they have lack of access to water, like to health care and to education. So in order for Brazil to become really one important and powerful country, he has first of all to solve this problem of identity. So he has to define its own identity. After defining its own identity, he then can be included in the society and it can start to create an international dialogue and communication. And first of all, through the action of cultural diplomacy. So the importance of culture is really important, of course, related to identity and related to cultural diplomacy. According to the UN Mexico Declaration on Cultural Policies in 1982, culture has been defined as one of the fundamental right of human beings. It's really important because through culture, people can express they can express themselves, can express like they have this kind of freedom of expression, and even like through culture, people can improve their sense of identity and they can foster their sense of belonging. So according to Edward Hall in 1976, he wrote a book called Beyond Culture. And according to his opinion, there are like a kind of classification of culture. There are countries who are referred like high context culture countries and low context culture countries. So, and this depending on the different kind of communication, interaction, and even sense of identity. In fact, in some countries, there are like more, the communication is more explicit, in other countries it's less explicit, and even the sense of identity is stronger or less strong. So in terms always of culture, today we talked about globalization, the importance of globalization, and we saw that actually the world is really changing really fast. And this really affects the culture, because right now we can say that we're living in a kind of like cultural world. And actually this is a term also used by other two anthropologists called Lechner and Boley. They talk that world culture is how people perceive each other and actually how they perceive these differences. In fact, world culture can also be related to this kind of Western imperialism. And actually we talked about this Western imperialism and how some countries, maybe like Western countries, maybe trying to dominate more other countries in terms of even cultural effect of cultural cultural effect. So world culture is really important because we are living so in a globalized world, and so we can talk about cultural globalization and how important are like global contexts and global exchanges. So it's really important like culture, because cultural agreements can foster this sense of local community and this sense of identity. So in conclusion, the identity, definition of the other, the concept of the other, and the culture contribute to the explanation of the cultural diplomacy. Moreover, by perceiving who is the other and actually even appreciating the other, people can use culture as a tool for fostering mutual understanding and establishing relationships between countries and promoting social inclusion. So I'm just finishing by quoting Edward Hall, who wrote Beyond Culture. He said, the most important psychological aspect of culture, the bridge between culture and personality, is the identification process. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Agostinelli. Thanks very much, Ms. Agostinelli.